Oh, side note.
Yeah.
This is so how you described putting together a collective.
Uh-huh.
That's how Brockhampton happened.
Really?
Yeah. So in short, the story is um, the main guy behind the group, Kevin Abstract. He said he didn't have a lot of friends growing up, so he went on a Kanye West fan forum
Oh,
and said, and by this point he was already making music on his own. So he went on a forum and said, "Does anyone want to start a group? Anyone can join." Blah blah blah, and people responded. And the final group, still had a lot of people. They had in total, they had like fucking 12, 13 people in the group.
yeah.
But originally, they had a lot more because of the fact that it was online. And
Uh-huh.
then eventually, they would get together and meet. And I think they all met in Texas. And then from there, they cut down the numbers to the people who like really wanted to be in a group, take it seriously, and try to make the thing happen. But
Yeah.
all that happened because of a Kanye West forum, and it happened on the internet.
Yeah. That's
Exactly
true.
what you described. You wanted like-minded people, but you wanted to form an actual community.
Yeah.
That was Brockhampton.
You know, I'm gonna be
They
honest
even
right
have a
now.
lyric. There's a in the song "Swamp." Merlin says, "Never would have met my friends had it not been for satellites."
Um,
That's a bar.
that's a bar. I'm gonna get a lot of hate from this, but I thought Brockhampton was just one guy.
That's hilarious. That's very common. That's a
Yeah,
very
I
common
didn't know it was
misconception.
what you just described right now. That's really cool.
You really didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that. No. No, I
I
didn't
know
know that.
you've like you didn't follow them, but I know you've heard their music.
Yeah.
And you assumed all that was one guy.
Yeah. I thought Brockhampton was
So this is
just
gonna be
this one guy.
hilarious. So in a future podcast, so after this, go listen to a couple songs, and in a future podcast, we'll talk about this again.
Yeah. That'd be dope.
So just so the audience knows, you think or you thought Brockhampton was one person.
Yeah.
So if you don't know who Brockhampton is, and if you happen to be listening to this, go listen to them, and we're going to talk about this again eventually.
Yeah.
It's going to be crazy. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, so what I wanted to say before the end of last episode was there are a lot of really bad things happening in the world. I mean, I get asked this question all the time. Someone's DMing me like, "How do I have hope? Like everything is on a down road, spiral. What do I do?" I'm just like at that point, I just straight up say like, you have to find something to live for. I mean, you have to essentially you have to have hope in something. Like without hope, without
Meant to live, like
yeah,
Switchfoot.
we were meant to do mental live. Exactly.
Remember that?
Without those
That was your
things,
shit, doggy.
Switchfoot.
You remember that? Do you
Of
remember that?
of course I do. Yeah, I
Don't
haven't
play
listened
with
to that
me.
in forever.
You
I
remember that.
I remember that. I loved it.
But
Um,
also, we should also mention that a lot of the problems that we blame the internet for have been around since ever.
dude.
And the internet makes them worse,
Yeah,
definitely. It
yeah.
sped up the damage that they cause and I guess expanded it, but it didn't invent them. So I just
Uh-huh.
thought of an example. So there's an interview with Prince from like the I don't know, early 2000s. And he basically says that he had to disconnect from watching the TV so much because he would watch the news. He didn't watch like shows, but he would watch the news, and he had to disconnect. And he says because, and he also said everyone else should. He said because it's scaring people, it's dividing people, but also we were meant to process all that information all at once. So literally, what you said earlier, people have been saying for a while. We were not meant to process, and this is back then. Like there was no social media. Well, just before social media. So Um, so the idea of being like in an algorithm has been around as long as there's been information. So before social media was like the news, whatever news you would intake. And sometimes it could be like quote unquote neutral news, like the average 10 o'clock news. But even then, they're not always neutral. You know, they do like to, there's a saying, if it bleeds, it leads. Some shit like that, basically meaning the more dramatic and technically negative the news is, the more ratings they'll get.
Yeah.
So they talk about like something blowing up or someone being killed or about the crime rates going up or not even crime rates going up, but look word it in a way where if you're watching it, you're led to believe crime rates are going up. But all they're really doing is talking about crime rate, the crime that's been happening lately in an area.
Yeah.
And they'll kind of allude to it going up, but really like it isn't. If you want to use like objectable evidence, like crime has been going down for the past 40 years. But at the time, that would have been your news feed. So if you're seeing that and you watch the news all day, and then maybe you have cable and you're watching fucking Fox News, you were in that spiral anyway. So it's just crazy to have that perspective of the the idea of disconnecting isn't new at all. It was just easier back then because you know it was something. TV was something you went to. TV was at home. So I used to work at a boys and girls club, and what they do in the mornings is that they just have the kids show up, and then at a certain point they separate them and then give them activities or whatever. So it's in the morning, and I'm usually with the younger kids, but because it's the morning, they're all in one place. So I know she's crying, and I was like watching her, and she like, you know, she wasn't stopping. So I walked over and asked, like, you know, what's going on? And I think at this point, she saw me around enough to where she would open up. She basically said, like, why are there so many bad things happening in the world? And I'm confused, you know, she's 10, you know? And so I ask her, what do you what do you mean by that? And she says, I was watching the news and she saw so many bad things happening on the news. And I was like, wow. Like, yeah, based off what you saw, yeah, everything is falling to shit. But it's such a bigger thing that I don't know if I can explain this to a 10-year-old
Yeah.
in a way where not just to get them to stop crying, but in a way where they understand this going forward. And I don't think I was able to figure it out because she's only, yeah, 10, maybe 11, but that's still like so young. That's still a kid. So I basically just said that what you saw is only some of what you see. It's not everything. And maybe, I think maybe I suggested like watching less of it, but that's as far as I could get because I couldn't, you know, it's a longer conversation, but also she was a kid. And this was like not that long ago. So it's crazy that a phone didn't do that to someone. It was not life, but at some point starts teaching people how to interpret information, how to
Yes.
engage with technology. This is going to get worse.
Damn, that's so true, dude.
Yeah.
That legitimately needs to be a class either in high school or middle school where you learn internet competency or technological competency. And it's just learning like psychological facts and learning how to, understand information,
Yeah.
go past
Yeah.
clickbait, you know what I mean? Like it's man, that would be so immensely helpful.
Me and you used to joke about like there should be a class where you're taught to how to do taxes. And
Yeah.
eventually after high school I started seeing memes about those things. And I was like, oh, so it's not just me. Like this
Yeah.
is a thing people think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, there should be like a fucking like life class where you're taught, yeah, how to do your taxes, how to fucking change a tire, how to do seemingly everyday things that you're never really taught how to do. Like in a perfect world, your parents teach you these things, but sometimes they don't know, or maybe they just don't teach you.
Yeah.
And ideally, that's what school's for. So by the time you're done with your 12 years of education, you should be able to just walk out into the world and be a person. And that should be one of those things, like how to, internet's not going away. So how do you navigate it? And that way, that would right away fix a lot of things that people struggle with, like anxiety, depression, knowing how to manage their time better. So there you go. Run for Congress.
Hell yeah.
Advocate for that. so we can get that on the ballot.
Frick, yeah.
Like honestly, would you run for office ever?
Nope, I have too much dirt in my past that would be smear
Mm,
campaigns against me. So, I mean, look, if Donald Trump could do it, somebody would say if Donald Trump could do it, you can do it. But I don't know if I have the mental capacity to experience that because I'm a very insecure person, and a lot of
mm,
work that I've done over the last 3 years has been accepting the fact that it's okay for me to have peace in life. Like it's okay for me to enjoy life. It's okay for me to experience the what is that saying? Man's rights, like man's due rights. You know, life, liberty, property. So I don't know if that I
mm.
have the mental
For a
capacity.
second, I was like, what do you mean by men's rights?
Not men's. I mean man in the
I was like, oh shit.
broader sense, in the more metaphorical sense. Life, liberty, and property. Right?
Into? Yeah.
Nah, dude. Not no. Down with the patriarchy. Um,
Uh,
And so, yeah, but you never know. Life changes, things happen. My therapist says that. He's like, "Yeah, but you don't know." I'm like, "Damn it." Yeah, you're right.
that's
You're
hilarious.
right. And that's why I hate hypotheticals. I always say this. I mean, if you know me, you know that I hate hypotheticals because it's like in my head, it's like, what good does it do to? I guess for me, because I'm an anxious person, it's like, what good does it do to ruminate?
Wait, do you really? Do you really hate hypotheticals?
I do. I really hate hypotheticals.
So you hate when someone like poses a hypothetical question to you?
Yes, because
What?
there's a difference between hypothetical and theoretical, right?
Okay.
Um, I find like most of the time people use hypotheticals just to rationalize something they don't understand or because they're prideful, like just to make them
Mm,
right at the expense at any expense. And so at that point, in my opinion, you're not thinking, you're not critically thinking, you're just taking the easy route out. You're just making up a hypothetical to prove your point because it's like it's easier that way, even though the chances of that are so incredibly slim. Well, hypothetically, what if you're
right.
about you're pulling the lever and the trolley goes up and kills one? It's a hypothetical. Okay, it's not going to
Right.
happen.
Okay.
It may happen at 1.3 billion chances. It may happen at some point in this universe. So then we can get into talking about alternate universes and realities and things like that. But fact of the matter is,
Hmm.
I just think hypotheticals are this lazy way of trying to prove a point. I would much rather reason in other ways.
I see what you mean. Okay. I see what you mean.
So you never know, and it's true. You never know, and that's the great thing about life is you have to let yourself be open to the possibility of great things, even though those things seem terrifying and they come with dangers and you can't let that stop you. I mean, I personally believe if you are an honest person, maybe you weren't an honest person before, and that was discovered. Doesn't mean that you can't be honest. It doesn't mean that you'll never be honest. It doesn't mean that you'll never be a good person. It doesn't mean that you'll never be a better person. You know, I personally believe that people can have redemption. You can you can reconcile. I mean, there are consequences to your action, and you may have lost people or things that you'll never get back. That's the consequence of
Hmm.
your action. But
Yeah.
nobody should be able to take away your opportunity to reconcile within yourself and reconcile with those who want to reconcile with you, with those who will forgive you, not forget, but work out things with you.
Mhm.
And that's why I'm like, as long as you're honest and you're transparent and you have fail safes, you have accountability. I think that your character will speak for itself and you can do those things. Now, people like Trump shouldn't be doing those things. I think he's taking advantage of the system. I think he continues to be a shitty person, regardless of the shitty things he's done. And I see this all
Right.
the time from conservatives' mouths, from Christians' mouths. Oh, but that's like what he used to be. And like, I saw this Facebook post where he's like holding the Bible and he's like, he's a good guy. Like he said this one quote where he was like, I love black people. Okay.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Just say it or what? What how are you going to act? I mean the guy just
Right.
continues to just spew shit out of his mouth. And there's just a group of people that exist now who are just like that's gospel, that's canon, that's correct. And it's polarity, and everybody feeds into it. The
And cult of
capitalistic
personality.
person, yeah, cult of personality, and politics. I mean, that's why, or oppressive structures. I mean, I don't look. I'm thankful that I have the freedom to say this and not have to fear for my life. But in my opinion, the United States government is a terrorist organization. The United States government is
True.
not good. It does not have
True.
the best of intentions of real people groups in the world, and there are many people groups in the world that are not thriving because of us and because of things we won't do. But we live in this country, and so it's very easy when you go to a public school run by the state, and you listen to this politician and you believe in the binary, you believe they're Republican, Democrat. Like, it's so easy to just be indoctrinated into thinking you only have two choices, and thinking there's only good and evil, to thinking there's only right and wrong, and you lose the ability to see life in color, and you see life in a binary, and you forget that life is communal and diverse and beautiful. Um, and so, companies know that, you know,
Yeah.
institutions know that. They know that. That's why every that's why lobbyists exist, and that's why, you know, it goes on and on and on and on. Um,
And you said he's done a lot of shit, so which I agree. Like he shouldn't be allowed to enter anyone's good graces. You know,
yes.
he's lived his life
Yes.
the way he's wanted to.
Yes.
So even before he ran for president, like he has so many things on his fucking scoreboard that I'm like, at the very least, like you can't forgive a guy like that.
Oh yeah.
And he's lived his life anyway. It's one of those examples where not everyone gets everything that's coming to them.
You don't have to forgive people. You know what I mean? They
Yeah,
often say, "Oh, forgiveness is not for them; it's for yourself." Yeah, it is. But you can come to terms that that person is a crappy person. And you know what? I don't want to be involved in their life. I don't want to believe. I don't want to follow them because all that they are is just not good. So it's not that I'm not forgiving them. It's that I'm recognizing the reality that they're living in and the reality that they're perpetuating. And I'm saying that's not for me. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But yeah, going back to what I was talking about, honesty and letting your character speak for itself, blah 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 blah. It's really hard to do in a culture that is polarized because you have somebody defining what is good and bad for you. You don't define it for yourself. You don't think, you don't read, you don't meet new people. You're not steeped in different cultures. So the xenophobia increases, the racism increases. All of those things stay embedded in a culture of polarity, in a culture of
yeah,
homogeny. I mean, I guess you could say we used to be a homogenous type culture in America.
yeah.
The more white it was, of course.
It was the wrong kind of homogeny.
Well, I'm not too sure that there is a right kind of homogeny, but that is a different conversation.
Did you see the shit they used to do back in the day?
Oh, yeah, of course.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and I get what you mean. Like, no culture is inherently like perfect, but
Yeah.
there is such a thing as like shitty. You know,
Oh, yes.
there is a shitty
In
culture.
comparison, yes, I think we can say that there's much worse forms of homogeny than exists today.
Yeah,
But ultimately, I think that homogeny is more hurtful than it is helpful. I think diversity is just more beneficial
yeah.
to human flourishing in general. Hey guys, Curbs here. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of So I Was Told. I just want to give a shout out to everybody who has been supporting us online and leaving helpful comments. We really appreciate your support. This wouldn't be possible without listeners like you. See you next time.